officially. Welcome, everybody. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin, Executive Director of Beyond Barnard, and excited to welcome you all to this information session on the C's 4+1 pathway in computer science. Beyond Barnard is always excited to put these info sessions together and to work both on these and in an ongoing way with our partners on faculty and over at Columbia. These are truly a joint collaborative effort, and my thanks in advance to everybody who's here to share information, and we'll introduce ourselves as we go along. Oops, hold on one second. Great. So just a quick look at our agenda for today. I'll give a brief overview of the 4+1 pathways, then turn things over to Professor Rebecca Wright, the Barnard faculty lead for computer science 4+1, and Carol Borman-Begg from Columbia Student Services. And then Natasha Stanislas will go over the application timeline and process, and then we'll end with some FAQs we've received before, and then open the floor to any additional questions that we have at that point. So the accelerated 4+1 pathways, there are five main pathways where we have an agreement with a school or program at Columbia. And the goal and intention of these, as they have evolved over the years, is to allow students to combine their undergraduate liberal arts education at Barnard with a master's degree at Columbia, and in just one additional year. And so these have existed in a variety of forms over the years, but a lot of them were formalized 5 or 6 years ago in agreements between various schools over at Columbia. And there are additional 4+1 opportunities that exist that don't have a formal partnership. Beyond Barnard's role with the 4+1 pathways and any other graduate opportunities is to provide application support. And then in addition, specifically with the 4+1 pathways, we provide logistical and administrative support to each of these agreements and partnerships. So I'll talk a little bit more about how we divvy up that support and liaison work. But in the meantime, let's find out more about specifically the computer science pathway and why my little advanced feature. I'll turn things over to Professor Wright to do the next section.
Great, thank you. So I'm Professor Rebecca Wright. I am faculty in computer science at Barnard, also the chair of computer science at Barnard, and I serve as the faculty lead for the CS 4+1 program, which is what we are here talking about today. And we will also be joined, if she gets here in time. Oh, she is here. I see her, by Carol Borman-Begg, who is on the Columbia computer science side and heads the student services there, and is a big part of the support network of people that you have while you are a master's student. So we will both talk about different aspects of the 4+1 pathway. Next slide, please. So let me sort of start by backing out, and you may have some ideas of this by the fact that you came to this session suggests you may have thought about this already, but maybe you're here partly to figure out why would I even do a master's degree in computer science, the +1 piece where you get that master's after the bachelor's in just one degree because in 1 year because you accelerated your progress. So there's a couple of different reasons. You might want to broaden your knowledge of computer science. So, during your time as an undergraduate, you have a certain amount of time to take classes in computer science, but also you are, taking advantage of your broad liberal arts education. And so you might just think, that there's specific topics that you didn't get to that you would still like to explore in an academic setting. And that's one reason to stay on. Another is to deepen, right? So you figured out during your undergraduate time that you particularly liked artificial intelligence, say, and wanted to learn more about it, wanted to work on getting prepared for a career for it, and so you want to use the master's to really go in depth, and in fact the master's it necessarily has an in-depth piece to it, so that's a good match. That might be that you sort of focused on AI as an undergraduate, and now you want to do computer security, something like that. So the ability to deepen, and of course, in the master's program, you'll be doing both of those anyway. You'll be broadening and deepening. And then you also might be wanting to open job opportunities and starting salaries that require a master's degree. It's still the case, even with some softening in the job market, that our undergraduate graduates do quite well, typically, in computer science, especially if they majored in computer science. But, nonetheless, there is a salary bump and certain jobs where that master's degree experience is valued. So that can be sort of or master's or equivalent experience, and the master's can be sort of a shortcut to get there. So there's many reasons that you might want to do that. Next slide, please. And so in particular, if you are thinking you want a master's degree in computer science, the Columbia master's program is an excellent program, and the 4+1 pathway is a way to sort of efficiently take advantage of that opportunity, both in terms of an accelerated application process or abbreviated application process, and being able to take some of those classes while you are still an undergrad. So that pathway, the pathway to do the master's in computer science, is open to Barnard undergraduates who are either majoring in CS or minoring in CS. If you're thinking you might want to do the CS master's and don't have that major or minor, probably best to try to add it, because otherwise you might want to look at, there's a bridge pathway that we're not talking about today that Columbia Computer Science can admit students who don't have computer science background, and they have to take those extra courses, because basically you need to be prepared to be taking those advanced master's classes by the time you get there. So today we're talking about the 4+1 pathway, which is eligible to those CS majors and minors. The master's degree structurally is 10 classes, 30 credits. Beyond the BA requirements. So that's 10 classes. The accelerated piece is that you do some of them. We recommend 2, although you can do anywhere from 0 to 5. But you do them while you're an undergrad as classes that are not needed in any way, including for your overall credits for the Barnard requirements. And then you have, say, 4 and 4 left, or if you do more, you have, even fewer left. If you end up, you sort of thought you would do more, but you only did 1. You can still continue, but the pathway may take, the master's piece might take a little bit longer. We recommend, as sort of a good balance, if you aim for those 2 courses while you're still an undergrad, and then 8 left in the 5th year, that easily fits in the 1 year, and it doesn't sort of compromise your ability to do well while you're an undergrad, both in terms of keeping up the GPA to have the eligibility to apply, but also really to just engage with and learn the material in those classes that you are taking. Some planning is needed in the sense that I said it's 10 courses, but of course, if you take courses that have prerequisites that are not themselves in those 10 courses or in your undergrad courses, then it might be more courses. But if you do your planning, you can usually sort of harmonize and synthesize that the requirements so that any prerequisites either fit in the 10 classes for the master's or can fit into your undergraduate degree. There's more details in the Barnard CS website under curriculum and courses. And I should say, now that I'm thinking of it, everything we write there, the undergrad piece is described in terms of the track-based curriculum. Everything we say is still true for the trackless curriculum, except that when we refer to undergraduate tracks, it doesn't apply anymore. Next slide, please. In terms of the program timeline, in your junior year and senior year, you can be taking those extra courses that start the progress on the master's degree. And in particular, the classes that are extra, it doesn't matter exactly when they're taken. It's just at the time that you graduate from the Barnard program, there's classes that are used towards your undergrad major, and those classes cannot be used towards the graduate program. And similarly, any classes in the 122 credits are not available to use later. So as I said, it's okay if you take fewer, but then the master's program might take longer. And I'm going to reiterate this anytime I talk to you about this program, because sometimes students miss it, which is that to count for the master's, these courses that you take while in undergrad, they cannot be used for any requirements for the Barnard undergraduate degree, not for the major, not for any DERs, and this is the one sometimes missed, not for your overall credit requirements. So 122 if you're not a transfer student, 121 if you are. Also, the classes must be taken for a letter grade, not pass fail, and must receive a passing grade, which is a grade of at least C minus. In your senior year, you complete all of your BA requirements. You're continuing to make progress to the extent that you are towards the CS master's requirements. You will submit your completion application via your C's admissions account in the spring. We didn't put it in here because there's an application timeline later, but you did your basic application, your first application in the spring of your junior year. And then from the administration of the program standpoint, early in the spring semester of your senior year, you coordinate with currently me, the Barnard CS 4+1 faculty lead, about which of your classes you plan to use which way, so that when we graduate you, when you graduate, but when we write down why you satisfied the requirements for graduation for the undergrad, we're not inadvertently using any of the classes that you think you're using for the MS, because when there's other classes we could have used. So if you're a CS major, if you're a declared major already, you'll know that you have an individualized CS major tracking sheet that's shared with you, your major advisor, the chair, and our admin. And that is where we'll do that tracking. We'll add a section for the 4+1 if you apply to the 4+1 or admitted. If you're a CS minor, we don't have that individualized sheet for you. So please do make sure that you talk to me or whoever is the then 4+1 lead in the early spring of your senior year, if you're going on to the MS, so that again we can just make sure you're not using any courses that you think you can, basically to make sure we agree about which classes you have available to use for the master's, and that your chair of your major also will not use any of those classes if you're taking a major that's close enough that some of those classes might count. Then if you decide to actually do the MS, so you do the completion application, you get in, you put in your deposit, you will not register like a normal Barnard student timeline that you're used to. It will all be much later. You'll register like a new master's student. So typically anything about the courses, housing, whatever, happens later in August, and that can sometimes come as a surprise. So just warning you about that up front. Next slide, please. So in terms of the content of the master's and its requirements, so as I said, it's 10 classes, typically 30 credits is the actual requirement. So assuming 3 credit courses, that would be 10. And as I alluded to earlier, it actually has both breadth and depth built into it. And so it can be a good way to explore both of those things. Breadth requirements are that you have to take one class from each of 3 groups, systems theory and AI and applications, and then a 4th class from any of those 3 areas. And then the track requirement is where you add to that with more depth, which is another 6 to 9 points in track required courses, 6 to 12, depending on whether it was 6, where in the 6 to 9 it was for track electives, at least 6 of which, so typically 2 classes, have to be at the 6,000 level. And then some general electives if you haven't already satisfied all your points, as well as a professional development and leadership component that Carol will talk about. Next slide, please. And so there's quite a number of tracks. They look similar, but a little different to the undergraduate tracks, which if you're a junior now, probably are what you're following, although you can follow the trackless version. And they are a way to make sure as a master's student you get sufficient depth in some area, since that is an important component of the master's program. You can read the ones that are here, and definitely worth thinking a little bit while still an undergraduate, if you're going on to this program, about which of the tracks you would envision doing, so that you can plan your courses sort of targeted to the requirements. Although, just like as an undergraduate, you have a little more flexibility at the beginning as you're sort of fulfilling different requirements that can be used in different ways. But the more you do, the more you need to start to think about it. There's also a personalized track that requires faculty approval because it's not a standard case. But if you have your own idea, just like a special major as an undergrad here at Barnard, where you're like, oh, I have this vision for what I want to do, and this is what it looks like, this is why it's interesting, these are the classes, you can talk to a Columbia master's advisor who can potentially approve that for you. And similarly, there's a thesis track that requires faculty approval. In that one, you spend, instead of some of the coursework, you do a research-based thesis that is 9 points, so replacing 3 of the courses you might have taken, and requires a thesis defense as well. So for the 4+1, where you have less time that you're actually at Columbia in the master's, if you are interested in the thesis track, highly recommended that you start looking for, finding, talking to a potential thesis advisor before you actually start the master's at Columbia, so that you can maybe do some undergraduate research and preparation to get you up to speed, so that you can actually be ready with an acceptable thesis proposal, thesis, and passable thesis defense. More information about all the tracks and everything else here at the Columbia computer science website listed there. And I will now turn over to Carol Borman-Begg, who's going to talk about some of the support that you get as a master's student, and to help both your progress through the program, but also give you professional development, help you with career services and things like that. Carol.
Thank you. If I could just add on to some of the requirements for the program, we were talking about a passing grade of a C-. Keep in mind that for the master's, we need our students to be at a 2.7 overall. I thought I'd updated the slide, but I think I'm updating a different one. So just keep that in mind as you move forward, that we want you to hit that target as well. So our chair for the program is Michalis, and we have the whole team works to support our master's students, but primarily you'd probably hear from myself or my colleague Jingling, and you can reach us at ms-advising. So a lot of you, especially if you're a major or minor, are already using the undergraduate advising, which is UG. So when you transition to your MS program, you'll transition to a new inbox. We also spoke about the professional development and leadership piece of the MS degree. And so as part of that, we have people to help you support your search for internships and careers moving forward. We have, they're called career placement officers, or CPO. So Stefan is our main one. And then we also have support from Austin and Jackie. Next slide, please. So you've probably already become accustomed to MICE. If you're a major, we created a MICE account for you. So this is part of that transition over from Barnard into Columbia and into the department. So MICE is how we record all of these interactions that we have and any approvals that you get from your faculty. So if, for example, you were following the personalized track or the thesis track, or you've spoken to your faculty advisor and waived a particular requirement and taking something different, if we get a copy of that to the MS advising email, we'll put that into MICE so that we can refer back to that moving forward. We also will use this for importing classes so that we can log it and you can see it all in one place. If you're interested in applying for TA or CA positions, that also happens through MICE. And we won't look at the grades there because MICE doesn't necessarily do that, but you can add things into there to make your application more appealing to the faculty. As we also mentioned, there's a transition point from when you're coming from Barnard into Columbia, and you'll start using SSOL or Virgil. So this is something that we see sometimes confuses our 401 students, because in that transition point, you're going to have a different registration timeline and a different system. So I would encourage you to check SSOL regularly. It will tell you when your registration slot's going to come up, and then use that time to get into all of our wait lists as soon as possible. As you know, we have a lot of wait lists, and we prioritize that based on seniority. And with the master's students, that is increased because we're typically seeing people finish it within, in your case, is 2 semesters. I've seen a couple do it in 1 with a lot of planning. It doesn't happen very often, but you have a more truncated pathway. So we're going to prioritize you a bit more on those wait lists. We can't register for you, so you do have to do that through SSOL. But if you have questions, you can reach us, and let's look at a little bit more of how that happens. Can we do the next slide? So some of the things that come up are, what is a full-time registration? So for students, that is a minimum of 12. As you see at the bottom, there's a registration cap that's set in place. So when you're in your first year, that registration cap, which also includes the wait list, is 15. And then in the second year, that 3rd semester, it's down to 9. So this will help you plan out what you need to do. If you're not an international student on an F1 or J1, you don't have to be full-time. You can pursue this part-time. The only requirement is that you finish within 5 years. And if you have more specific questions about that, let us know. Next slide, please. So this is where it can get a little bit confusing. As Professor Wright was talking about, what we're trying to do is transfer your credits that weren't used in your undergrad, and that's the really important piece. These credits cannot have been used in any way, shape, or form, not for electives, not just to build your credit total. They have to be completely different. And we have to move that from your Barnard record into your CSMS record. And we do this through a process called advanced standing. So when you join us, you'll reach out to us via that email and say, I would like to request this advanced standing. These are the courses I want to include. And we'll ask you to get a copy of that document from your registrar, or to confirm with the registrar that these courses were not used for your undergrad. And then we send that to Cs, and they will add those credits onto your record. And then we log in your MICE which of those specific courses have counted. So we're looking for the graduate level courses. Nothing below 4,000 will count, and you need to have passed it with a C- or higher. And typically those are going to be comms classes. There may be some exceptions, and when you look on the track listings, you'll see what those exceptions are, because certain other Cs courses count towards the tracks, but these will be what we'll be bringing over. And this is how we've had a few stellar students do it in one semester, because they're bringing the full 15 over. Next slide, please.
Carol, before I go to the next slide, I just ask a clarifying question. This takes
Sure.
place in year 5 under the 4+1, the transfer, like they have to be fully enrolled and admitted into that year 5 piece of this.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Okay, so like I said, we have a part of our advising team that's devoted to careers, and this you can really engage with once you transition from the undergrad to the master's. Some of the feedback that we often hear from our undergraduate students is that the undergraduate career advising is not necessarily very specific to CS. That changes when you come to the master's program. So Stefan, Austin, and Jackie, this is their bread and butter. So we will, I'll show you on the other slide some of the things that we do to support, but they're there to help you build up your resume, build your connections, and get you into a good internship that will hopefully lead to a good position when you graduate and move on. Next slide. Thank you. So how this works in practice is, once you join the master's program, you'll be invited to enroll in the PDL course. And so this has a lot of different sessions that you can select from. It's quite a big range of things. So you're really choosing the things that are helping you enhance yourself and your future career. We also have a number of events that happen. So we've got things like alumni coming back to give talks. There are different industry like pods will collaborate with different departments, and then there'll sometimes specific employers that will come to campus, will help you get ready, will do interviews, things like that. They can do job coaching, and there are lots of resources available through a system called VMark, which you get registered into once you're part of the MS program. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is your PDL team, and the PDL course is this engineering 4,000 course, and it's typically spread over 2 semesters, because that's what we're expecting you to finish in. So you'll start it in the first semester, you'll finish it in the second, so don't be surprised if you have a blank grade in between. And this just gives you kind of an idea of what they're helping you focus on. So a lot of it is resume, but they'll also dive into things like presentation skills, writing effectively, all of the things that you need to get career ready. So like building up your LinkedIn profile, all of those fun things. And these are some of the people that you'll be working with. So we've got Dean Mack, Dean Strauss, Gabby, who's on the far side, who's the head of the PDL team, and then other people who'll help support you in that task. They have a really good website that has all of the different sessions that they offer each semester, so you can kind of see what you would like to pick and tailor to your needs so that you can get career ready. Next slide. Okay, so this is really my team, and these are the things that we'll help you with. So we're really on more of the administrative side of things. So we'll help make sure that you've fulfilled all the requirements for your program, make sure that everything's up to date in MICE, and ultimately push you through that graduation process. And we have a lot of tools and resources on our website that can help you. So looking at academic progress, doing your graduation clearance, registration management. So if you're under enrolled or you perhaps have too many things on your schedule, we may reach out to you and say, perhaps you need to look at this a bit differently. If you're an international student, we'll also handle your CPT, which is what you would use to do your internships, and OPT if you're looking for employment post-graduation. And if we can't help, we also are more of a compass. We'll connect you to the offices that can. And then on the social side, in addition to those career pieces that we mentioned, we also do different events. So we'll have welcome events and orientation when you transition to the MS program. We do graduation, we do monthly social events, we do coffee and questions, which some of you may have already come to, so you can come ask us some questions and eat some cake, because everything's better with cake. And then we're also doing some like informational sessions aside from the careers, different things, different tools to help get you ready for doing exams, being successful. And then of course we have the research fair, which I think some of you attended this semester, and that happens each semester. Next slide. So you can reach us, like I said, once you're in the MS program for the MS advising, please make sure to include your uni. Some of you have wonderful email addresses that are your names or your preferred names, and we cannot find your records with those. So please remember to include your uni so that we can pull you out. And then in addition to the email, we have the QQ hours. So those change each semester, but we typically have them on our order response and on our website. So you can drop by the front desk for quick questions. We can't do big things like review your entire academic program, but we can answer quick things and help you out. So if you need to meet with one of us, we typically ask you to start at either QQ or the inbox, and then we'll send you out to one of the advisors if we need to sit down and go through more. And so that's things like wellness support, academic difficulties, if you're considering taking a leave. Basically, anytime you're not sure what to do, start with us and we'll point you in the right direction. And then the last one. So this is kind of wider than us within Cs. So we have the wellness support. There's a great page there. They do a lot of events, especially through finals, for helping you kind of manage all the stress. They can connect you with more involved support if you do have some wellness concerns. And they also hold different kind of sessions so that you can connect with other people outside of the comms department. And then you also have access to Columbia Health, which I think you already have through Barnard. But if not, there's extra support in there. And I think that's all from me.
Just reiterating the contact information.
Yeah, so all of our careers peeps can be reached through careers at CS.
Excellent. Great. So now I will turn things over to Natasha to talk about the application timeline and process for the 4+1 pathway.
All right, thank you so much. So my name is Natasha Stanislas. I am a recruitment and communications officer at the Columbia Engineering Graduate Admissions Office. A little bit about myself. I am a native New Yorker. I've been at Columbia for the better part of a lot of years. I think I just got till year 11. And so as a first generation college student, I always like to start with my presentations to just put out there if you have any questions, if you need any clarifications. And yes, if I get involved in the alphabet soup that is working at an institution at Columbia and I start using acronyms, please stop me. Someone in the chat, ask me to explain something if needed. Now, we got a lot of great information about your course requirements and specifics and nuances to the computer science pathway. But again, to reiterate, for eligibility for this particular pathway, you do need to complete a major or a minor in computer science, and that GPA should be at least a 3.5. 3.5 is particularly important because that's what signals to us that you are in fact ready for graduate level courses and graduate level engineering. However, if you are a 3.4217689 or whichever happens on your transcript, if you really feel like it's just a rounding error and you're really close to being eligible for the pathway, I would still submit an application. I would still pursue the program and pathway. But again, if you're too far from that number, that to us doesn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence in your ability to do well. You know, graduate school can still very much be in your future, but we want to make sure if you're doing this particular pathway that you're actually ready for it academically. And just to reiterate the application timeline, or to really clarify it from the admissions perspective, you do start in your junior year. The application becomes available usually by September 1st. Sometimes we try to sneak it out a little bit earlier. The application is due February 15th. By all means, you can and I encourage you to start working on the application sooner rather than later when you can. And then admissions decisions go out in that May of your junior year. All departments are a little bit different with their timelines. I love working with faculty and departments. However, sometimes it can feel a little frustrating trying to get a hold of them. And so what I do want to encourage for any applicants that it's almost no news is good news. If you don't immediately get a decision May 1st, it is not indicative of you. The faculty members, as you can tell, they're very engaged with their students and they're very engaged with the larger programmatic needs of the department. And there are also other applications they're reading for other programs for the department as well. So I do always encourage applicants to exercise a bit of patience. We'll certainly do our best to render that decision sooner rather than later. But really throughout the month of May, you're likely to hear back from faculty on essentially a conditional admissions offer. It's provisional. We're saying that we like what we see. And then the second part is your senior year, where you're actually maintaining that GPA. You're starting to chip away at graduate degree level courses in computer science in particular. And what then you do is complete the completion app. So it is an opportunity for you to, again, just reiterate that you have been working with an advisor, that you are taking the required courses, that your GPA has been maintained, and that you can officially be offered admission to Columbia Engineering for a Master's of Science program. And then a little bit about the actual application itself. The application is on our website. Generally speaking, if you're a ways away, maybe you snuck into this presentation and you're just a freshman or a sophomore. If you're a ways away from actually applying, you can still open an application. We might send you one too many emails, but you might feel comfortable actually seeing what the platform looks like and how things are explained. Sometimes that's a great way to just get a sense of, what the actual application process is and to put you a bit at ease because, of course, every college, university can do it a little bit differently. The actual application requirements include transcripts. We cannot access your data across campus for a really good reason. So you do need to provide unofficial transcripts, just copies of transcripts, including anything that you may have done outside of Barnard. Your personal statement is also important to us, so word of advice to cover your past, present, and future, to really think about what it is about Columbia Engineering, not just, its amazing location across the street, wonderful, helpful faculty members, like what is it, really get into what it is about your goals that match with being able to be part of the Pathway program. Resume and CV that we really hope are detailed and speak to your involvement in the field of engineering or even just generally with STEM and leadership roles and hopefully even research if you've had the opportunity for that as well. And then we would like the contact information for 3 reference providers. Ideally, they're faculty members. Bonus points if they're Columbia or Barnard faculty. And just as any other admissions process, the more relevant it is, the stronger it's going to be for your application. So if you can get a Barnard or Columbia faculty member that's in computer science, that's also going to really, again, speak to your ability and readiness for the program. If you've done an internship, if there's a part-time role, sometimes those references can be helpful and speak to who you are, as a person. But again, because we are so academically driven, it is totally okay for all 3 of those references to be academic and to even be computer science that specifically. And one of the amazing things about this particular pathway program is how the admissions process works to your benefit. So in addition to having this opportunity where you're chipping away at your master's courses as a Barnard student while you're still at your college, you're also waiving standardized testing. So you're not having to submit the GRE. Right now, it's optional for applicants, but for you, it's waived altogether. It's just never been a requirement. And then there's no application fee. If you were to apply, after college and after you got some work experience and you wanted to consider multiple different schools, that cost adds up. And certainly, once you look at sending transcripts left and right and having to study for these exams, that cost really can add up. So we're really happy that we're able to waive standardized testing as well as the application fee. And I did want to cover some application frequently asked questions, particularly about the pathway. I think the big one is admissions to the MS program from the Pathway Guaranteed. And so, for us, it is likely. I mean, you go to a great school that provides you academically. You've got great resources at Beyond Barnard to be able to make sure that your personal statement is ready to go or your resume is ready to go. Like there's a network of resources that you get to take advantage of to help strengthen your application. But it's not technically guaranteed. And even if you're kind of given that conditional offer, there are conditions that you have to satisfy in your senior year at Barnard to be able to officially be enrolled in the Master of Science program. So you do want to keep that in mind. It's certainly feasible, and as long as you're following your advisor's direction and you got a lot of great information and specific to even course numbers to look for, that's going to be really important for you to maintain your eligibility for the program. Another big question that we get is about funding. Funding for graduate degrees is just very different than funding for undergraduate degrees. So at the base level, if you're really now in the process receiving funding via the FAFSA, if you're a US citizen or permanent resident, there's no equivalent on the graduate side where you'd be getting funding from the federal government. So when it comes to funding opportunities, we always send along opportunities that are designed to support students from in particular underrepresented backgrounds, and you're able to still apply for a lot of the aid that or fellowships that would be available for a master's program. There may even be opportunities that are external to Columbia that you could take advantage of to help finance your Master's of Science degree. But again, one of the benefits of the program is that you're able to chip away at those graduate requirements while you're still in college, and so that can, you know, overall be able to provide a bit of additional support in a way that may not exist again if you were to pursue this program or pursue any master's program after you graduate from college. And what other application options are available? Life happens. Sometimes maybe had a plan to go straight into a master's program, and then you start to think about it and you think, maybe the timing's just not for me, or maybe you feel the need to take even additional courses, shore up your GPA, or maybe you just want to go straight into the workforce after college. And so when it comes to looking at other application options, you are still eligible for the MS Express application. That is for currently enrolled Columbia or affiliate students. So obviously Barnard. And the application is essentially the same. There's no required GRE scores. There's no application fee. The letters of reference, we're actually in both cases, we're just looking for their contact details. We don't necessarily always reach out for the letters themselves. So it's that truncated admissions process to make it a bit straightforward because we know the value of the education that you received. So if the pathway program just doesn't speak to you right now and you go on, I think you have up to 5 years to do that MS Express application. That way you're able to pursue your graduate education in a way that at least the application process is streamlined for you. So you want to consider those options. Do you want to split the Master's of Science experience between your senior year really at Barnard and a year afterwards at Columbia Engineering? Or do you want to take time in between to do research, to work, and then be able to apply to Columbia Engineering with that express application? So those are your options.
Great, thank you so much. We segue into questions here in a moment. I'll open things up widely in a second, but first I wanted to tackle one of the biggest sort of frequently asked questions we get is, since this is a collaborative effort, who should I talk to and when? So I just wanted to outline a little. You'll see there's some overlap here, but generally speaking, Beyond Barnard advisors we're seeing you in a lot of first years and sophomores and even first semester juniors as they consider consider applying to the pathway. And we're happy to talk to you about whatever's on your mind or whatever is driving your interest in it, how the possible pathways fit into your overall academic interest, your overall career goals. And we will review much of what Natasha just talked about, the application requirements and the timeline. And then as Beyond Barnard does for all of your graduate school plans, as well as job seeking, we will provide application support. And so we're happy to work with you on your personal statement in the early stages or maybe towards the end. As always, can help you strengthen and target your resume or your CV. And frequently students will run by us, who should I ask? They'll run by us the specifics of who should I ask as references, and we'll sort of weigh your options and give you some advice there. As Professor Wright outlined, Barnard faculty lead is very involved in this process, especially on the academic side. So reviewing your academic progress, keeping an eye on how you'll finish your requirements at Barnard, what's going to count for what, and how can you fit in some of these graduate level courses if possible, and how you'll manage all these requirements over years 4 and year 5. And then our amazing team of Columbia administrators, advisors, and faculty. You got a lot of previews of that today, as well as being able to hear directly from Carol and Natasha. So if you're looking at a particular pathway, concentration tracks, you're able to ask more questions about that. The application, as Natasha said, is through C. So if you're having any issues with application logistics, you can reach out to the admissions team. And then, as Carol went over, there's a lot of career support at the master's level. And so exploring, again, even if you haven't decided yet to apply, asking some questions about possible career pathways that a master's could open up. All of us really, I think, can speak to that to some level. So, and then before we open it up to your specific questions, these are some of the questions that do tend to pop up a lot. And some of these I think we've already covered in one way or another, but just to clarify some of them, there's really 2 decision points where you commit. So if you apply in the spring of your junior year, February 15th, once you receive your acceptance, you have Natasha, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you have 2 weeks from the time that you get that offer to agree. I see, maybe I have that wrong.
I think it's 3.
Excellent. All right. Even
It's
better.
3 on the dot. Yeah.
Great. So again, if you are accepted into the pathway and you're still sort of deciding, you absolutely can circle back to myself or somebody on the Beyond Barnard team to talk to Professor Wright, about what you're thinking about. So, and then the second point.
Christine, can I just add to that? Because one version of the question I get. So in particular, in the junior year application, you're not committing to anything. And in fact, Columbia isn't fully committing to anything either. Although, as Natasha was saying, you just have to maintain your progress. But you can apply as a junior. You haven't committed that you're gonna complete the completion application, that you're definitely gonna go. So you don't have to feel fully decided in your junior year when you submit that application that this is definitely what you want to do. The following year, when you submit the completion application, even then you don't have to be decided, but at that point you're obviously expressing that you're still interested. And then this smaller window is when you get back an acceptance from that completion application. Then you have this window in which you have to be like, thank you so much, I'd like to take the spot, or never mind, I've found something else I'd like to do. So that's the point at which, and then if you say yes, I'd like to go, that's when you're actually committing, putting down a deposit, things like that.
Excellent. Yeah, in what I was saying initially about the junior year, you're accepting a provisional acceptance, and then, as we've reiterated a couple times, following up in senior year when you've done your completion. What if I'm graduating in the fall semester? Different variations come up on this. If you are planning to graduate Barnard a semester early or take an additional semester at Barnard, these are possibilities. We work closely with Natasha and others on the admissions team to double check all of this. The main thing I would say is if you are planning to graduate early or graduate a semester late, you need to be in communication with us and let us know that that's your plan, because then we communicate with Columbia, make sure that your completion application and various other technical logistical things are taken care of. So if you are anticipating any variation from the normal 4 years at Barnard, 1 year at Columbia, just communicate that, ask questions about it so that that goes smoothly. Cs did not allow you to defer your start. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we've had several students ask that over the years, and the answer is always no. There is no formal deferral of admission, but you are able to reapply and be able to use most of the, there's a lot of similarities when you reapply, especially if it's relatively soon. Can I start in the summer semester? The answer to that has been no every time a student has asked. So that would be the summer between year 4 and year 5. Can you do the MS program remotely? I believe the answer to this is no. I don't know if Carol or if Carol, if you
I
want to
can, yeah. So the answer is potentially. We typically in these programs are admitting students to the in-person, but there is the option to transfer. I think in this case, you'd want to work with our team so that we can make a determination, because what we're ultimately looking for is how well have you performed in the comms classes. So if you're a stellar student, we may be able to make an exception. We'd need to talk to admissions about how to do that, but the mechanism does exist. It would just revolve a few conversations, I would say.
Excellent. And I believe Carol went over the part-time option and how that might apply, especially if you have taken some of the graduate level courses while still at Barnard. That opens up possibilities to be part-time, or, as she said, condense it all in one semester or spread it out over 2. I think this is a key one. When you are in your year 4 at Barnard and have questions about courses they're taking, who do they reach out to? Carol, maybe you could field this as well.
So we can help, but keep in mind, just as Natasha's side in admissions can't see your record, we can't see your record. So if we have a note of it in MICE, we can make comments, but we can't see your full record. And we also don't know which of those courses are counting towards your undergrad. So typically we're going to direct you to the track page, and then if you have specific questions between us and your Barnard advisor, we may be able to answer it for you. But please be really clear when you reach out to us. I'm a Barnard 4.1 student. Here's the courses that I've taken. This is what I'm counting towards my undergrad. Please give me some advice, because it's a little tricky for you guys, because we can't just dip into your record and see, oh, you've taken these things.
Right. Thanks. And then finally, I think we answered this before, but in terms of actually transferring your classes or getting advanced standing, that takes place in year 5. Once you're enrolled, there is a process for identifying which courses you took as an undergraduate that didn't count at all in any way towards your Barnard degree, but you'd like to move over to Columbia. And so that's when that would happen. All right. So we've anticipated hopefully some of your questions, but I hope that you have more, and I'm going to stop sharing at this point and open things up. Anybody, I think we may have a couple in the chat. And feel free to type more into the chat or to come off mic. All right, so I see one that says, oops, sorry, I'm having a little trouble. Keeps jumping around. If I am going to have a super senior year, 2 additional semester, can somebody else read that out loud? It's that my cursor is just jumping around and not allowing me to see the full question.
Yeah, I think this is Catherine's question. If I'm going to have a super senior year, 2 additional semesters, but not 1, as I am a transfer, can I apply in my senior year instead of junior year?
So that would be one. So you'll be at Barnard for 1 additional semester. So you'd be at Barnard for 4.5 years as opposed to, well, sorry, transfer. I'm not 100% sure.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry for interrupting. It's my question. So I mean, I'll stay here for 1 more year. So I mean, like, can I apply in my senior year, which means like 2 year away from my like undergraduate graduation?
I-
Just like where we should be if we are going to graduate in 4 years.
I think the way to think about it is you would graduate, you would apply the year before. Yeah. Yeah. So the year before you plan to start taking classes. So yeah, I think you could do it in what would have been your senior year. I think the answer is yes, but
Yeah,
Right. So
thank you
like
so
this
much.
spring, she would do the junior year application.
mhm.
Next spring, which would be her final semester, Catherine, if I have it right, that would be your final semester. Then you would do the completion application. And then the following fall, you would start the master's program.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
I see that there's a question from Eden. It sounds like the MS here is slightly more research focused and more geared towards preparing students for industry. Because of that, are students still expected or recommended to do research in undergrad, or are other experiences such as internships also valued well? So we do have, there's courses that you're taking towards your track, but that isn't necessarily precluding you from going into research, and you can do research pieces. What we ask, because each piece of research that you do, like if you attended the research fair that we had 2 weeks ago, is your faculty advisor needs to approve that towards your track. It can count as just a general elective. So if you're registering, for example, for Comms 4901 or for 6901, which are typically our research projects courses, they can be the general electives. But if you want it to count towards those track requirements, you just need to let your faculty advisor know, and if they approve, forward it to us. But there's definitely scope to do research. We allow a maximum of 9 credits to come into the program. So there's definitely that flexibility. And then your internships are something that you would be doing in addition to that. Hopefully that answers the question.
I'll maybe address also what I think might be part of the question in terms of the strength of your application. Research experience is a strength of your application. Industry internships are a strength of your application. Those would be things that would be definitely should be highlighted on your resume or CV. And then, the extent to which that they come up in your personal statement is sort of how they fit into your story of your past, present, and future, and how and why you are interested in this particular program and what your goals are and all of that. But definitely either or both of those can be considered strengths. And I would say, how you decide which one you should spend your time on really should be about what is valuable and interesting to you, and not about necessarily positioning yourself for this particular application, because they'll both be viewed as strengths.
I have one question that came to me as a direct message. I won't share the name, but it is a good question that I think Natasha could probably address. In the application portal, the question, have you ever been disciplined, put on probation, suspended, etc. And so this student is involved in a pending disciplinary case that might not be resolved by the 15th. So how does this, just a general concern, how this might affect my application?
Yeah, no, understood. I think I think the main thing is to just, I mean, in all cases with the admissions process, to be as transparent and honest as possible. I would say in this case, if you wanted to upload just a supplementary material to just give the committee the heads up of, at this moment, I have not, necessarily been disciplined in any regard, and it may be resolved, but I'm currently, in a process. That way, if you do have to be in a situation where you're reaching out in a couple of weeks or a couple of months to say, actually, not great news, this did happen, it won't completely blindside the admissions committee. There may already be a sense of, okay, this is a student who is taking accountability and they're being transparent. Unfortunately, it does happen. Students make mistakes. And I'm certainly learning myself that even when it comes to, academic integrity in the sciences and computer science, it could be, copying someone's code. It could be maybe trying to take a shortcut, right? So sometimes these things happen, and committee members are fully aware that students make mistakes, and that doesn't mean that you're banned from applying and that you can never ever come back from those mistakes, but we do still need to evaluate, of course, if you're still a good fit for the classroom now, and if it's a different type of disciplinary action, making sure that your well-being, your safety, the well-being of others, the safety of others, of course, is taken into account. So there is a process for that. I think if I were in that particular position, my advice would just be to not blindside the committee, because you don't want to be in that situation either.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I encourage anybody in that situation to follow up with myself or Professor Wright, possibly to talk about the specifics of your situation and potentially how to address it in that addendum. So not that we have all the answers, but these are sort of tricky questions, and we're happy to talk that through with you. So we have a question: are we eligible to receive financial aid during our year at sea? So as Natasha explained, financial aid, especially any federal financial aid, doesn't exist at the master's level. I will say very cautiously that we have a limited amount of funding from the Sloan Foundation currently that is eligible to a handful of students who have been rated as having high financial need as an undergraduate. The reason I want to be really cautious about it is that this is a 5-year grant that we received, and it's coming up on its renewal, and its renewal there's always never a guarantee that philanthropic and foundational grants like this continue. But we are happy to talk to you about, Natasha mentioned that there are external sources of funding, particularly for underserved populations entering computer science. And so we're happy to, we don't have a magical list of those, but we've definitely worked with students over the years to identify, had a couple of students a couple of years ago who were, I think they were they both from Nebraska, but they in their hometowns found some small stipends that specifically supported STEM graduate studies. So it wasn't huge, but every little bit can help. And we're happy to talk to you about strategies for that. Like I said, we don't have a magic list, but we can definitely talk to you about strategies for finding those opportunities. What else do we have? I've taken a gap semester. I'm graduating in the fall semester. Is my timeline to apply the same as regular applicants? So does that mean, so you're going to graduate in the fall, this fall or the following fall? If it's the following fall, yeah, I think you would just follow the same. So you would right now be if you're a first semester junior instead of a second semester junior, you can go ahead and apply now.
Hi, so sorry, I'm asking that question. So I'm currently a first year at my sophomore year, but
okay.
yeah, so my question is that so I also applied in my own junior year for the first year, or the dates that you listed in the PowerPoints.
Natasha, does this, I think it's, when this has come up before, we've generally encouraged people to go by the dates. So even if they're off by a semester, it's just easier to go through the whole process together, be accepted into the cohort. It just gives you, I think, a little bit longer to start taking the courses. I think that's right. I don't know, Professor Wright or Natasha, I'm happy to defer to your greater expertise on this if you've got it.
In my experience, and this is working with Gabrielle over in SEA's admissions, so Natasha, feel free to add anything, is if you're in your senior year, meaning you're graduating, this semester or this academic year, depending on whether it's the fall or the spring, then you can no longer apply to the 4+1. You can apply to the MS Express. And the two function somewhat similarly. If you are not yet in your final year, then you can apply to the 4+1, even if you only have one more semester. So for instance, if you expect to graduate the following fall, you can still apply to the 4+1 now in the spring. And then instead of waiting till the following spring for the completion application, if you do it in the fall, and you have to talk to either Beyond Barnard. I think Beyond Barnard is your best contact point to say, do to the conversation, just to make sure that that completion application is opened up for you, because it won't be there yet otherwise in the fall. If, is there another if in there? If you, I think that's the main case that I see happen. And then if you end up graduating late, though, like say you take an extra semester, it could be a little bit longer. Like you applied to the 4+1 in your junior year, but then you got slowed down because you took fewer credits because something came up. Then you can still, so you're a following fall, but now you're late in the fall, like at the extra fall, still that fall, you can maybe, Natasha, you can get the completion application like that. They won't, that'll still be there in their C's record, I think, right?
Yeah, but I because I'm newer to the Pathways program, you're also welcome to reach out to admissions directly. I'll be sure to put the email address in the chat, and we can just quadruple check for you. But it is, as you can tell, a bit of a a puzzle for us to make sure that you're approaching the right amount of credits and not past that point, because then, as has already been said, the MS Express is the better route to go in terms of the application, because the intention of this is that you're able to start chipping away at those Masters of Science courses while you're fully supported by Barnard still, while you're still very much in your undergraduate institution. You got your friends, you got your resources, right? And you're able to go to graduate school. And so to be past that point, and no, it kind of defeats the purpose of it just a bit. You're not intended to take only C's engineering courses because you're done with Barnard courses. And then as part of like provisional admissions, we don't really do that. You're intended to do a bit of both before you get formally offered admission to the program. So depending on how far along it is, it might be just the reality that the MS Express is a better fit.
If I could just add, we do have students return to the department a couple of years after they finish their undergrad. As Professor Wright was saying, you're going out into industry, you're building your skills, and now you want to grow and do more. Your credits don't expire. It just means that your application then doesn't have the benefit of waiving certain fees. But if you've done credits in excess of your undergrad, we'll still be able to consider those for applying them towards the MS. So don't feel like you have to absolutely make a decision right away. You've got this 401, which is great. And then you've got the MS Express, and then you can still come back to us. We'll still welcome you back with open arms.
Carol, is there a window on the expiration of the credits? I think there is. No?
Not that I've seen so far. As long as they're in excess of the undergrad, we can consider them. I think we may want to like visit specific topics if the field has developed a lot. I once had a student come back to finish up a degree from like 76, and we had to revisit some of them because things had moved on. But I think if we're talking within like 2 or 3 years, we can look at them and we can still apply them towards your MS.
I think we're going to wrap things up. We're over time because of so many great questions. Thank you so much to Carol, Rebecca, Natasha, for all of your expertise and collaboration on answering all these questions. And thank you to the students who are still here and everybody who had to leave for joining us for this. And we look forward to talking to you more. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.